Hey everybody, we're gonna plant some watermelon today. Ooh, we got some choices here. Got the silvery Yamato. Ooh, this Polish honey melon, those are awesome. Got the little baby rich sweetnesses. We already got those going in the greenhouse. Oh, let's see, Loofah, Sweet Glow, Art Combs Ancient, got some more Sweet Glow, and oh yeah, yep, the rainbow, that's what's happening. Alright, so here's our spot where we're gonna plant. It's a fairly good sized raised bed. Just remember not to plant your watermelon too close together if you're going to be saving seeds, because there's a good chance they'll cross-pollinate. I mean, maybe that's what you want. It's exactly how these rainbow watermelon got started right here. These are a really cool variety that when they're ripe, it'll be like orange and red and yellow swirls. Well, let's get this prepped. Alright. We got all our mulch pushed back. We got our planting bed ready for our trench. So I'm gonna go ahead and dig our trench. Then I'm gonna put our fertilizer in. And then we're gonna plant our watermelon plants. All right, we got our beds prepped. Well, the bed prepped. I like to go down about 1.5 shovels worth. If you have harder ground, make sure it's loosened up. Maybe throw some sand in there, maybe a little bit of organic potting soil, loosen it up. But my beds, I've got compost mixed with a little bit of black dirt. There's some sand in here for a little bit of drainage, but my melons always do excellent right here. So let's go ahead and add some fertilizer. A little magnesium sulfate in there. Just sprinkle it like you're salting your food. Now, I only apply magnesium sulfate maybe twice, maybe 3 times the whole year, but just to get them going, put a little bit of dusting in there, and I won't have to add any more magnesium sulfate probably until late July or so. Then we're going to use some of this. So this is a 354 granule. It's all organic. But I like to mix a few handfuls. Right into the soil here, so I got something to eat before I really start fertilizing. Doesn't have to be a lot. Looks like we're almost out anyway. Okay. Alright, so now what we're gonna do, we're just gonna go down and do some twisting. Work that fertilizer into the first couple inches of soil. That rock out of there. That's looking pretty good. Spread that out a little. Okay, so next we're gonna do a trench, and basically a few inches from the sidewall, just make yourself a nice trench. Basically like you're planting potatoes, but don't go anywhere near that deep. Only 2-3 inches. So that's about all we're gonna need on these little seedlings. And those watermelon will spill right off the edge of the raised bed. And I'll hack this grass down here and probably put like some weed barrier on top coming out about 6 feet, just so the melons don't have to fight with the grass. All right, let's get some placed. All right, so I got a whole bunch of them placed. And most of the time when I'm doing melons in a raised bed, I'll measure from my elbow to the edge of my fingers, and I'll plant. That's how I'll do separating, but I don't have nearly enough plants to do that right here. So I've got them roughly 2.5 to 3 feet apart. And then we're gonna add some composted manure. I'm just gonna grab some handfuls. That's really good stuff. Awesome local company. Get it local if you can. And I'm just gonna throw that right on top of our dug pile. So the top of that will have a light covering of compost manure. And when we put that soil back around those plants, it's gonna have some nice feed to feed off of the first, oh, it might last 30 days maybe. But this is excellent for amending soil in your raised bed too. I love this stuff. I've been using the same stuff, the same company for over 20 years. Right out of Hutchinson, Minnesota. And I'm pretty sure you can order this stuff right to your door. Get a little thicker in there. Now I'm also gonna put some right down here between the plants. So that'll help with the bottom side. Now you can't really overdo it on this stuff because it's only like a 0.5, 0.5, 0.5 ratio. I mean, I've literally grown plants right in 100% of this stuff before. Some more in the trenches. You can use this compost manure on pretty much any plants. I mean, when I was in the tree industry for a long time, we used to put a whole bag of this in with every tree we planted. All right, that's looking great. Well, let's get some of these guys in. Now, I have a couple lined up like this just because they only have one plant in them. But then this one has 3. We got two different pots here again. This one has 3, 2 in there, 2 and 2. So we should have some good coverage. And lots of melons. All right, so basically the only thing I do for these melons is I'll just flip them right upside down. You can see the root growth already, and just gently stick it right there in the soil. Aren't quite grown in enough to hold them in place, but that's okay. They will take off in the next couple weeks. You just gotta baby them a little bit the first few weeks they're in the ground, and make sure you harden these off before you put them straight in the ground for transplants. I mean, you can always direct seed too, but I always have much better luck and way more melons when I start the seed in the greenhouse and then I transplant them outdoors. Beautiful. Give them a nice little press so you squeeze out the air. You don't want to have air down by your roots. Pull some of this extra in and level her out. Okay. Go to our next one. A lot easier to do with two hands. That's looking great. Put him, a little bit of purslane. That is a Minnesota native herb succulent. The leaves taste really good. The stems taste extremely bitter, but a wild succulent that grows in Minnesota. I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Okay. Level some of that out. Yep, you don't want to forget your tags, so you know what they are. Move that guy over a little. Oh, see, look at that. Perfect example of one that's not quite rooted in. So we're gonna have to baby him a little extra. I think I've only had these planted in the greenhouse for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. But they seem to love it. And it's okay to plant them slightly deeper. They'll develop roots on those stems. Just don't be burying any leaves, and try not to let the leaves touch the soil, because that's one of the first ways you get a bacterial infection. There we go, that guy went in pretty nice. All this extra soil down here. Compost down here. There we go, that's looking pretty good. I'll do one more here and we'll go on to the next step. Now sometimes you're gonna have to hill watermelons depending on how you plant them. And to hill them, basically, you're gonna wait till they start growing, and they'll start coming out. But sometimes that main spot where it's planted, you're gonna start having roots exposed because the melon plants are growing so well and so fast. So what you want to do is just bring your soil up right around the stem right there. You don't have to push it down or nothing, just make kind of like a volcano, and the roots will go right into that. All right, we got our melons in, our rainbow watermelon. And like I was saying earlier, these are a natural bee hybrid, and they will have awesome colors. The flesh is actually swirled orange, red, and yellow, so I'm pretty excited to grow these. The guy I got them from said they were in F4 stage this year, and he said they've produced that same swirl color effect on the flesh every single year since the bees hybrid it. All right, let's get some water. All right. Now try not to get too much on the leaves the first few times you water, so you don't want that sun to affect them. I like to give them a shot of water before the mulch. Oh, got all over the leaves on that one. Let that soak in. Now I do water them before I transplant them, so that starter soil is all wet. Now remember, the first couple weeks that your melons are growing, you're gonna really want to be in here pulling out any weeds that are anywhere near the melons, because if you let the weeds grow over, they're gonna just eat the nutrients right up, and watermelon are very heavy feeders. Okay, so now that we got the first watering done and they're soaked in, you might have to go back and cover up some of these stems a little bit, just so you don't have any damp off in the first few days. See, I got that leaf buried right there. That's no good. Just pop him off. After you got that, you want to grab your mulch or whatever you're using. I like to use shredded straw. Just make sure you don't have weed seeds in there, or make sure it comes from a place that doesn't use herbicide on their straw, because that could definitely affect your plants. Looks like I'll probably have to go find another bale here. But this will tremendously help hold the weeds down and hold the moisture in place around those melon plants while they're young. And you'll have to come back as they grow and train them to pop out of the raised bed. You know, if you're growing in a spot that you don't have to worry about where they're going, then you don't really have to do that. But I'll train all mine so they just spill right over the edge of the bed. And those melon roots, they will flow all through here. Every year when I dig them plants up, there's roots, 2-3 feet long, just scattered all through here. Now, I usually plant my melons in the same place. I rotate them out from like cantaloupe to watermelon. But if you have a disease problem or a fungal problem or a bacterial infection that is lingering, then obviously you want to rotate crops. And I would even recommend taking out some of that soil that you had the infection in and replacing it with new stuff or compost. Yeah, the more mulch you have on there, the better that soil is gonna stay weed free and hold that moisture. Especially in the hot days we got coming up here. We got like 2 weeks of right around 85, 90 degree weather. So you wanna make sure these are good and watered in and mulched up. I'll definitely need a little bit more mulch out here. But for the most part, we got it pretty covered. Now you definitely want to be checking these at least once a day. I usually check mine twice just for moisture. And especially when they're starting to fruit later in the year, like I usually, when I plant now, I think it's June 1st. So depending on what size melons, these will probably be ready to harvest sometime late August or so. Because these are a little bigger size. I think these get about 25 pounds or so. I usually don't grow the huge ones, but I couldn't pass up these watermelon that had the rainbow colors, almost like a sherbet ice cream. Make sure your plants aren't covered in mulch. There. Make sure your tag's out. And make sure you're watering a lot when these are getting closer to harvest, because that's what's going to help develop the sugars and make them juicier. Now I'll come back probably about 30 days or so and I'll give them a treatment of Alaskan fish fertilizer. And I usually do that on my melons about once a month after the 30-day time frame, so that fertilizer in the ground and that compost is not gonna work with the other fertilizer and burn it. So give it about 30 days before you start fertilizing if you're using the granule and the compost. All right, with the addition of a little bit more mulch, they're looking pretty good. You'll have to stop back. I'll do another video down the line here when these are ready to harvest, and we'll cut them open and check them out. So until next time, Jason with Toadstool Gardens. Give me a like if you learned something. Subscribe to my channel so you can check out all my gardening videos. And I appreciate you watching. Happy growing.